Hi, everyone. Welcome to the channel. President Biden is gunning for the Supreme Court. You've probably seen in the news that he's talking about making calling for some reforms to the Supreme Court. One of them being term limits, a term limit of 18 years for the justices, and then a rehaul of the code of conduct. I think specifically looking after concerning gifts that the justices receive. And I have to say, I'm kind of for this. I believe in transparency in the government, so I don't know that this would be a bad thing. It could be a good thing. But my only problem is we may not be carrying it for enough. What about Congress? What about term limits for Congress? What about their gift reporting? And let's dig into that a little bit and let's see exactly what goes on at the congressional level. Congress has to report gifts. There's a rule, I guess, an ethics committee rule that they have to report gifts. But as usual, they give themselves a lot of leeway. So there's 20 carve-outs in this rule of things they do not have to report. And I read through them, and one of them that's very interesting, and I believe very vague, is they do not have to report a gift if it comes from a personal friend. So anyone that they consider a personal friend or say is a personal friend, I guess can give them unlimited value in gifts and they don't have to report it. To me, that seems like that you're just asking or begging for abuse on that type carve out. So they're trying to tighten up on the Supreme Court because sometimes the justices will go and stay at a friend's house, a vacation home, take a break. And the administration, I guess, thinks that, well, this could sway the decisions that the justices make on the different cases. But presidents can stay at friends' vacation homes or primary homes or properties. Members of Congress can. So why are we just singling out Supreme Court justices? This is what I think should be included. Again, I'm for transparency, and yeah, maybe this would be a good idea at Supreme Court, but it also needs to apply to Congress. Congress needs term limits. We have many senators and congressmen that are career politicians. They've been in Washington basically their whole adult life. They don't have careers outside of being a politician. Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, look at these guys. They have been in Washington forever. I don't think the founding fathers had it set up that way. I don't think they recognized the concept of professional politician or career politician. Most of these guys went and served their country in helping to found a nation, and then when their work was done, they went back home. They went back to their plantations or businesses or whatever their personal life was. And yeah, of course, they would stay in touch with the with the current figures in the government through letters and correspondence and things, offering advice, but they wasn't really actively in politics. So they wasn't career politicians. But Washington's full of that now. So if we're going to do term limits for Supreme Court, let's do term limits for Congress. And let's tighten up the reporting of gift giving to Congress. Another big issue is lobbying. So if we're going to look at reform and ethics and conduct, how can we overlook lobbying? The lobbying group, let me pull this up, to get an idea of how much money lobbyists throw around in Washington. The top spenders, number one is the Chamber of Commerce. In 24, they plowed $38 million into Congress. And who do they represent? Well, they represent business. And one of the things they push for is immigration. Why do they push for immigration? Well, they represent businesses, cheap labor. Number two is the National Association of Realtors. Of all people, realtors are number two in giving money to Congress. Why? Number three is pharma, big pharma. Well, we kind of know why they do. They give $17 million. Now, this is just what we can find. I'm sure there's loopholes probably and backdoor ways that these special interests can get money into Washington in other ways. Meta, Facebook, $13.5 million in Washington in lobbying. What are they lobbying for? So when you look at these things, you got to think that it's got to be fair and balanced. If we're going to do reforms, and I'm all for it, anything that gives more transparency in Washington, I'm all for it. But we got to do it across the board. We just can't single out the Supreme Court. There's three branches of government, all of them with equal power. It has to be for checks and balances. And the argument about term limits on Congress, the argument against it is, well, yeah, but Congress is elected, so there's a way to give them term limits. You vote them out of office. Well, no, that's not really practical. Reason being, we have a two-party political system in the country. I mean, if you're going to win an election, you got to be on a Republican or Democrat ticket. I mean, there's a handful of independents, very, very few. But face it, once you get elected to office as a Republican or Democrat, it's pretty hard to remove you. I mean, if you decide to keep running, you're more than likely going to get reelected. So there's really not a way to put a term limit on Congress through elections, just because of the way the system's set up. The only effective way to do it would be to pass legislation, or I don't know, maybe it takes the constitutional amendment to put term limits on Congress also. So yeah, President Biden, I'm all for it. Let's do some reforming. Let's put term limits on the justices. I do think 18 years, maybe a little longer, because I think if there's any branch of government where you need a lot of an experience, it would be a Supreme Court justice, but because they're deciding constitutional issues, and that's a big deal. But yeah, we can have term limits, Supreme Court, but we need term limits on Congress also, and we need to control the flow of money going to Congress from special interest. Their interest should be their constituents. That should be their only interest. The people that vote and put them in power, that should be the only people they're looking out for. Lobbyist groups, there should be a limit. There should be a limit on any one person or any one entity or business or organization on how much they can contribute to a politician's campaign. We can make a number, $500, $1,000, whatever, but there needs to be a limit. There needs to be a limit, because you can't allow big spenders with deep pockets to have such one-sided influence in Washington, because at the end of the day, they're there to serve the American people, and that should be their only interest. They should not be special interest up there lobbying. I mean, in my opinion, the lobbying industry should not even exist. It should be banned, because if the Congress people, the congressmen and senators, if you get out and listen to your constituents, you know what issues need to be addressed. You don't need lobbyists trying to pull you in one direction or the other. Just listen to your voters. They'll tell you what you need to concentrate on and where the money needs to be spent and what legislation needs to be passed to address what issues. So that's my take on the on this current situation now with the Supreme Court. Yeah, let's look at reforming it. But in the same bill or the same constitutional amendment, we've got to include the other two branches. So if you comments, let me know what you think. If I'm wrong, let me know. But this is something I think that needs to be discussed. So if they get serious about this, it needs to be the entire government, all three branches. So that's my take. See you on the next video. Thanks.